Welcome to another episode of the Superhero Movie Club, a community of superhero movie fans. All nerds welcome, but please wipe your feet at the door. I'm your comic book cultured host, Michael Maurer, joined by the movie maestro,
James Schuyler Houtsma,
and the scientific scholar,
Ben Anderson. I don't know what happened there.
You not know how to read the outline? How many fucking times have we done this, Ben?
Okay, it was not my fault. Like, my shit froze up, and then you guys said all of your stuff, and like...
Also, Michael, you're just so goddamn loud. So goddamn loud right now.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll start over. Alright.
Good plan.
We'll start over. I apologize. I also just drank some alcohol. Alright, so welcome to another episode of the Superhero Movie Club, a community of superhero movie fans. All nerds welcome, but please wipe your feet at the door. I'm your comic book cultured host, Michael Maurer, joined by the movie maestro,
James Schuyler Houtsma,
and the scientific scholar,
Ben Anderson. SHMC is your premier movie discussion podcast. Every week we continue our journey exploring our favorite subject, superhero movies. Every fan sees the movies differently, so we gather some amateur experts to discuss certain aspects of the movie.
Whether it's money, comic books, proper crowbar form, music, or science, SHMC talks about it all in this week's episode. Batman Under the Red Hood. And yes, there will be spoilers.
Okay, this is our inaugural animated direct-to-video SHMC review. What do we call what we do? Just a podcast analysis? A discussion?
Yeah, I think it's a I don't know what it is. This thing we do.
Yeah, this podcast discussion, I guess. PD.
Yeah. R.I.P.D.
R.I.P. Oh, let's not talk about R.I.P.D. So we're going to do first opinions, and I want to start off with Schuyler on this one.
Oh, yay, me! Okay. Alright, so for a first adaptation of the Under the Red Hood storyline, Batman Under the Red Hood does a pretty good job of telling a story that can be kind of convoluted and stretched out like comic books sometimes tend to be. It's very dark. It's don't plant your kids in front of this one because you'll regret it. But it's also pretty well acted. The voice cast is great. The animation is pretty slick, and as a self-contained animated feature, it does pretty well for itself.
When you're done with your first opinion, popcorn someone, please.
Popcorn Michael.
Fantastic. Under the Red Hood was an amazing watch the first time. Among all of the DC animated films to come out, I want to say this one is in my top 3. Or it was, because when I watched it the second time, the magic was gone. And I think that goes to show with the fact that I didn't know the Under the Hood storyline before watching this movie, and whenever a direct-to-video triggers me going to Wikipedia for like a 2-hour binge of comic book research, then I know it's good. So Under the Red Hood holds some respect in my regard. I gotta say, I love how Warner Brothers Animation manages to get some just big, recognizable names for all of the voice casting. I mean, you've got Bruce Greenwood as Batman, you've got Neil Patrick Harris as Nightwing, and why don't we throw in Jensen Ackles of Supernatural fame to voice the Red Hood? Not to mention, of course, John DiMaggio, who is just, voices every character ever, among other voice actors. But Under the Red Hood is just a fantastic story I'm not gonna say you shouldn't let your kids watch. It is definitely a bit gruesome because it deals with a very adult storyline. But there's a lot of stuff in there that I think kids will enjoy to make it lean towards more of a kids film than an adult film, because it tries to reel. You can obviously see it reeling back on the R-rated material at certain moments. But outside of that, I gotta say, it's definitely a recommend to those of you who have never seen it and are Batman fans, which is, 80% of the population of the world. Popcorn Ben.
I kind of agree with Skylar for once, where I saw in this movie it was pulling elements from a few different storylines, all of which I had read. And if you know the twists, it's not like the story is just like, okay, well, I already know what's going to happen, so you're not really invested. And I'm not convinced that John DiMaggio pretending to be Heath Ledger was the right way to cast the Joker. Not that it was bad, just I don't know what I would have done differently, but something. But it was well produced, well animated. There's some exciting action, some bad dialogue, but it's I recommend it. Maybe less if you already know the Red Hood storyline and the Death in the Family storyline. But definitely watchable. I might watch it again. But, it was good. Popcorn.
Sorry, I was having trouble with Mike there. I always appreciate your dissenting opinion, Ben, because because a lot of people want to cite that John DiMaggio has delivered the best representation of a voiced Joker since Mark Hamill.
That's not true.
No.
And maybe I've just been watching a lot of Batman the Animated Series from the early 90s because it was Halloween and I didn't want to go to a Halloween party, so I stayed home and watched Batman the Animated Series. But Mark Hamill is the definitive Joker, especially animated Joker.
Yeah, because John DiMaggio combines aspects of that Mark Hamill performance as well as the Heath Ledger performance. You see the usual cartoony comical laugh side, but you also get a little bit of this homicidal, very dark spin to it as well. And I've heard this is the first time I've heard people say that it's not the way to go. A lot of my friends in the comic book community, so we are biased to the point, say that this was the best way you could have gone with Jokers if Mark Hamill doesn't want to do it anymore. But I like to hear that some people don't think that way, and your reasoning is very valid.
Yeah, not that he gave a bad performance.
No,
I just don't know if he was the right choice. But I mean, if Mark Hamill's not going to do it, then I can't actually think of anyone anyone else to do it either. So
it's like, guys, it's I8. It's just I8. So.
Well, the only other person I can think of, we had Brett Spiner voice the Joker, Data from Star Trek: The Next Generation. He did it in Young Justice, and I thought that was I was very impressed with that presentation. And then Kevin Michael Richardson voiced the Joker in the television series The Batman, and he actually got nominated for an Emmy for his performance, actually.
And then there was Michael Emerson of Lost and Person of Interest, who did the Dark Knight Returns adaptation.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for bringing that up, because I thought that dude is creepy enough on his own.
Yeah.
I would say maybe pulling another voice actor from Adventure Time, Tom Kenny, who was the voice of the Ice King.
Yeah.
I think the Ice King's voice would make a good Joker voice.
Really? Well,
maybe.
Maybe, because I think it would if you were a lot more kiddish. Because Tom Kenny's very high-pitched.
Yeah, that's
naturally.
more going the Mark Hamill Joker route.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, I gotta say, it continues to impress me, John DiMaggio's voice acting talent. Because
he is an incredible actor.
yeah, because
Just
you
amazing.
you look up his stuff and you're like, he has voiced so many different kinds of characters, and if you
Mhm.
look for it, you can hear it. But initially, sometimes you're like, whoa, no idea, no, I had no clue going into this, and you're just absolutely impressed. So, that being said, we're going to skip past the money section we usually do because there are very few solid money stats on direct-to-video releases. So it's not really informative or entertaining to talk about the budget or the profits of this film. It got released, people bought DVDs, people watched it, it's a good time. So we're going to go right on to the comic book section where we talk about the comic book origins of this film. And of course, Under the Red Hood is it follows the storyline of the comic book Batman Under the Hood as very closely, but it also combines elements of Death in the Family and Killing Joke and Hush, other Batman story arcs that create a better context for this film. Because Death in the Family involved the storyline where Jason Todd dies, and that's very important to know for Under the Hood, of course. And then you have Killing Joke, which is a revitalization of the origin of Joker, which puts him as the Red Hood. Originally, that magician with the big dome head in the one flashback scene you get, because they reference that a lot in the film. And then Hush, it was a comic book that just was the first allusion to Jason Todd coming back alive, because he died sometime in 1983, I think, and they didn't bring him back until 2005. So I want to talk about some characters that get their first film adaptation appearance, and some only film adaptation appearance, and we'll start with Amazo. Excuse me. And Amazo
Nice.
premiered.
Gotta keep that in.
Amazo premiered in The Brave and the Bold, number 30, in 1960, created by Gardner Fox and Murphy Anderson. Amazo was the android you see, who was aptly described by Batman to a bunch of crooks in the film. And his backstory is that android was created by Professor Ivo as a means to serve Ivo's obsession with immortality. And his original programming is to kill the Justice League, destroy the Justice League. But eventually, because Amazo's ability is to adapt to superheroes' powers and learn them and imitate them, he eventually gains sentience and becomes an actually very evolved figure in the DC universe until a new Amazo is created, who is, blank slated and just made to kill the Justice League again. A great storyline involving the Amazo android can be seen in the Justice League television series and the Justice League Unlimited television series, where he actually disappears off into the distance for a number of episodes and comes back as an absolutely highly evolved being beyond even Superman. And I love that stuff when I was a kid. I love it now. It's still great. The next character is Black Mask, who I've got to say is one of my favorite Batman villains. Premiered in Batman number 386 in 1985 by Doug Mennick and Tom Mandrake. And his real name is Roman Sionis, and I love his backstory. So I'm just going to sort of summarize it real quick for you. His parents cared only about his social status, about their social status. They cared about it more than the son's well-being. So a lot of times when the son got hurt, when Roman got hurt, they would say, Roman, suck it up, don't talk about it, because we need to impress our rich friends. So that made Roman resent the fact that his parents wore masks in public, and in their private life, they were so cruel to him. Roman eventually became attracted to a woman who worked in his father's company, and his parents disapproved of this relationship because she's working class, she's below us, and that Roman, having enough of that, burns down his family's estate, his family's house, with his parents in it. Therefore, he inherits all that his parents owned.
That, I don't know if that would hold up legally.
If they never found out that Roman caused the fire, then yes, I think that would hold up legally.
I suppose, yeah.
He's the only heir to the Sionis fortune, and everything's insured. But at his inception, Roman was a horrible businessman. So he lost everything in his father's pharmaceutical company when he inherited it. He lost the fortune. He lost his fiancée, who he fell in love with, who spurred this whole thing. And because of his pride, he never blamed himself. He blamed his parents for raising him up so horribly. So what he did is he went into his parents' crypt. He busted open his father's tomb and, desecrated their dead bodies. And his father's tomb was made of ebony. So he took the broken ebony coffin that his father was in, and he turned it into a black mask. And that's how he became, that's the name. That's how he became the criminal mastermind known as the Black Mask, and that's when he started his warlord crime reputation. Eventually, that Black Mask became seared onto his face in a Batman-related incident, of course, and that led to a long-seeding hatred of the Batman. There's a lot more to deal with the Black Mask, but I don't know why. I love business moguls going crazy as Batman villains for some reason.
And there's so many of them for some reason.
Yeah, and they all have something very colorful happen to them. The Penguin becomes more penguin-like. He was born that way. Two-Face gets acid thrown on his face. It's just so great, the rogues gallery that Batman has adapted for himself, because all of them are so wonderfully developed and colorfully imagined that they're all just great villains. The next character I want to move on to is Nightwing. And would you believe me if I said that Nightwing in Batman the Under the Red Hood, this is his only film debut. This is the only time Nightwing has ever been seen in a film presentation of any kind. He's been on varying television shows, but Under the Red Hood is the only movie he's in. We've seen Robin a few times in movies, but this is the only time we see Nightwing, because this is the first Robin. Dick Grayson, grown up at past 18 years old, struck out on his own to become Nightwing. The first time we see him in the costume is Tales of the Teen Titans number 44 in 1984. And he got his name from the time Superman told him about an old Kryptonian vigilante who took on the name Nightwing back on Krypton, which is great, I guess. If you ever want to know more about the Nightwing story, a good starting point would be the Batman animated series episode Old Wounds, because what?
Is that season 1?
No. That's when
like season 4, technically.
Yeah,
okay.
It's technically the new Batman adventures, because the Batman animated series had Dick Grayson Robin, but then they aged him 5 years.
That's when like the animation got all different, I would say.
Well, that's when the DC animated universe started growing into itself, because you saw introductions of the Superman television series, and then shortly after, shows like Static Shock, Justice League, and Batman Beyond.
Oh yeah, I remember the Batman Superman hour. I forget.
I love that stuff. And yeah, the Old Wounds BTAS episode is just 30 minutes of Dick describing why his falling out with Batman led to him coming into his own. And what I love about this is, as much as Dick Grayson grows up, and as much as Jason Todd grows up, Batman remains the same age. Bruce Wayne does not get any older than his mid-30s.
Lazarus Pits, dude.
Yeah, I don't think so. And the final character... Oh, no, I'm sorry, I still have two more. Oh man.
Nice.
Gotta keep it.
The next character is the Red Hood. The first time we see Red Hood in Detective Comics number 168 in 1951. Because this is the man that would eventually become the Joker. So the story is told first in 1951, but it's later alternativized by Alan Moore in The Killing Joke, which was released in the 80s, but was seen more as a Joker origin story. And as we all know about the Joker, is he's crazy. We don't really have... Nobody confirms or denies that either of the tales accurately describes the Joker's origin, because they like to make it a giant myth for the fans. But it is shown that, you see the Red Hood is originally that magician sort of outfit with the giant red dome over the top, and he was just a petty crook during Batman's early days, and it's seen as one of Batman's first failures, because this petty crook saw no way out, and he dived/fell into a vat of chemicals, which turned him into the Joker. And Batman couldn't stop that from happening because he was too young and inexperienced. And now his greatest enemy was birthed from that. And that's why all those Red Hood references come from in the movie, because the Joker used to wear that outfit. The last character to talk about is, of course, Jason Todd, the second Robin, premiering in Batman number 357 in 1963 by Jerry Conway and Don Newton.
63?
Yeah, 1983. Thank you.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Sorry. And the early stories were written by Jim Starlin, who's known for writing a lot of Marvel's cosmic tales, and fans received Jason Todd very poorly. They did not like the Jason Todd Robin stories, so much so that DC was like, all right, we're going to make a poll, and you guys are going to call in and vote whether or not you want Robin to die in this next comic book arc we're going to come up with.
They had a storyline called Death in the Family, just for context.
There
was a storyline called Death in the Family, where basically, like 4 issues into the storyline, they left it on a huge cliffhanger, and it was exactly like the beginning of this movie, Under the Red Hood, where Joker bashed his face with a crowbar, and then left him for dead, and then exploded the building he was in. And then fans voted on whether issue 5 should reveal that he died or survived.
And probably rightfully so, this movie didn't make any mention of what would later go on in that series, which involved the Ayatollah of Iran sending the Joker to gas the UN.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, that is
just a little dated.
It is. If you read the original Death in the Family, it is rife with the politics of the time. Because Joker is afraid of the leader of Iran, and it's to show that a real person in life could be more terrifying than the Joker. But yes, the fans voted kill Jason Todd, and they voted to that with only 72 votes being the difference.
Out of some 10,000 votes were cast.
Yeah, which is crazy, first of all. And because this wasn't like, this is pre-internet. People called a number. and voted. So there's no guarantee those were all individual votes, but I mean, how many times can you call a number and vote one way before you get tired of it? But there's a lot of... Go ahead.
It depends on how much you hate Jason Todd. And the fans really hated Jason Todd.
Yeah, enough of them did, definitely. And there's a lot of stories that involve Jason Todd, but he was dead for a good 22 years until this Under the Hood storyline came about in 2005. And then you get this movie. Ta-da!
I think it's finally safe to say that this isn't the first episode where we've mentioned these two characters, in that our Batman Arkham Knight episode did feature both of them.
Todd's in that one, isn't he? Oh,
Yes.
Shit, spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler alert, Jason Todd is the Arkham Knight.
It's
Whatever,
been like half a
if
year.
someone
guys.
tells you that there's like I've noticed that like every time someone's like, oh man, a new Batman thing, and there's a big twist in it, the twist is always Jason Todd's gonna show up.
Yeah.
We've reached the saturation point with that twist.
Yeah, I think we've had enough of Jason Todd. And, you know, it's a shame, too, because they brought him back, and then the DC comic book line of New 52 happened, where they reintroduced the DC universe with 52 new titles, and you got Red Hood and the Outlaws, which was, in my opinion, of the New 52 I've read, one of the worst comic books to come out, because it involved Red Hood, Red Arrow, and Starfire, and it was just fan service to how hot Starfire could look. It wasn't that compelling of a storyline, because Jason Todd was just kind of it was still portrayed as like an angsty 22-year-old, and instead of this like actually calculating and very trained and intelligent, motivated character that we got in this film. But I think that's enough of comic book history and context, at least to get you going to search on Wikipedia for more. So we're going to move it along to Skylar's section, music of Under the Red Hood.
This is the part where I talk. Okay. Music for Batman Under the Red Hood is done by Christopher Drake, who we have mentioned before on this podcast.
You have? We've mentioned him. Has he done any movies that we've talked about yet?
Not any movies. He has done the video game Batman Arkham Origins.
All right, because just a heads up, fans, in case you don't already know, Christopher Drake, since like 2004, 2006, I don't know, has taken over the animated Batman music.
I actually think this was his first foray into the Batman animated realm, and this was 2010. So.
Oh, I thought he did Public Enemies.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, that one might have been 2009. Anyway.
Okay. Well, whatever. Christopher Drake is now the Batman animated music guy, just so you know.
Yes, yeah. We've talked about him before, how he likes to set up certain rhythmic repetitions that eventually like spell out certain things and all that crazy shit. But the score to Batman Under the Red Hood is one that fits the movie really well, but is a nightmare to try and find clips for, because nothing lasts for more than like 15 seconds that's worth noting. So let's take a listen to the first one I picked out, Main Titles, that does actually have maybe a few notable moments.
All right, I'm going to take this moment to apologize to both you, Skylar, and Ben, because with animated movies, your sections get a little reduced. The comic book stuff is still juicy as all get up, but the soundtracks are definitely catered to much shorter films, shorter scenes. They've got to compact a lot more sound, and the science gets thrown out the door because it's an animated show. They don't need to give a crap.
Right. You gotta remember that whatever the budget was on this movie, probably a fraction of that went to music. It's probably written on a dude's computer, never performed by an actual orchestra, and everything lasts for about that long.
I still really like the soundtrack for this one, though.
Probably my favorite moment of the soundtrack comes up in Amazo, and it comes back again in the rooftop chase later in the movie. It's just that it falls in line with the rest of the soundtrack in that it's percussive, big, foreboding, exciting, and it's just a little like 30-minute snippet that when I think of the soundtrack of this movie, that's what I think about it. So let's take a listen to the soundtrack. Excuse me. Let's take a listen to the track Amazo to hear what I'm talking about.
Did you say 30 minutes?
Did I?
Okay.
I thought it said 30 seconds.
Oh, well, we're having that kind of night tonight, I think.
Yeah, is it play the thing?
I still think this sound is a little bit too well done to be composed on a computer.
Well, we're at a point with technology right now where it's pretty convincing. I mean, they can always probably sneak in a few minutes of studio recording time and then jerry-rig the rest of the way there. But yeah, for how it sounds, it does sound pretty professional.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like that snip you played me was like, that sounds kind of like. At least they had some brass section in there.
I think the trick is to make it sound like it's been recorded in a space that's just big enough to get this just this deep, loud sound that you can get with movies like Batman, and even if it's not made that recorded in such a place, just to produce it in such a way makes all the difference.
Okay.
But no, this one music works really well with the movie.
Yeah, and Christopher Drake is so solid at that. It's kind of crazy the job security that dude has, because Warner Brothers is pumping out a new animated movie like every year, I think, or at the very least every 2 years.
They're almost to the point of twice a year.
Yeah. Okay. Because yeah, they're on a string right now where like one's a Justice League movie and then the other's a Batman movie. Have you noticed that?
I have gotten that idea, yes.
And Christopher Drake does all the Batman ones every single time. And so it's just like the dude just has a good sound for what a Batman movie should be. The very low percussive sounds, and then a few brass coming in like inclinations, and then it sort of dies out to a little bit of techno at the bottom.
Yeah, no, he's definitely got his formula for it and whatnot. Even got to do one of the video games, which probably a lot more money.
Really? I suppose. a little bit less consistent, but yeah, probably a bigger paycheck. What do we know about this kind of industry, honestly? Any more music you want to talk about?
No, I'm good for today.
You got 2 clips that were a good 25 to 50 seconds, and you're rock solid.
Yep. Welcome to Animated Features.
All right, Ben, time for your torture session with the science segment of our show. And we're going to give you the chance to talk about fun facts, too, because how many science topics do you have? 1?
I have exactly 1.
Yeah, all right.
And actually, I'm surprised that we haven't talked about this now. But it's when cars burn nitros, we see a motorcycle do this.
Oh, at the very opening of the scene, for like 2 seconds, you see Batman hit a nitros button, and that's what we're going to talk about for the next 5 minutes.
Yep. So, yeah, that's all the science, because every other scientific aspect of this film either is not something new for us to talk about, or it's dealt with better in other films.
Yeah, because we've talked about the evolutionary aspects of Amazo when we talked about like Darwin in X-Men First Class.
And gadgets. We did gadgets in Batman Arkham Knight, and they come up, but there aren't really any noteworthy gadgets in this one, like grappling hooks.
We should still find some. I think we'll delve deep into grappling hooks eventually.
We could do a whole special on Batman gadgets. But now it's not the time for that. But Nitros shows up all the time in movies, so I'm a little surprised we haven't talked about it yet. So basically what that is in movies they push a button, but I don't think that's actually how it works in real life. Basically, nitros means that the engine is designed to burn nitrous oxide, which is 2 nitrogen atoms and an oxygen atom bonded together. They burn that instead of taking in, regular air. So burning nitrous oxide means the oxygen concentration of their, the air they're using to burn their fuel is 33%, whereas normal air is only 21% oxygen. So the engine has a higher output because if you have a higher, what's burning is the oxygen.
Yeah, I was going to say oxygen's more flammable.
Yeah, the oxygen is what allows the gasoline to burn or whatever. And so if you have a higher concentration of that, it's gonna run more efficiently. It's gonna have a higher output, but the engine is gonna run much hotter and less reliably in the long run. So you have to have an engine that's designed to burn nitrous oxide. But what that means is you can't really just switch it on, because that's not how your engine's designed.
Oh, sorry. There is a fire truck and a police car flying by my suburban dwelling right now in northwest Chicago.
That's neat. Usually they drive.
Screw you, Ben. So I was gonna say. So hold on. So nitrous oxide's a real thing. Like when you activate nitros in racing games, like that's not an unfounded principle that someone just made up one time.
It's not really you activate it. It's that it's like your engine's designed for that, so you have to carry around like a tank of nitrous oxide with you, and it just burns that instead of regular air. Is my understanding.
Does NASCAR have that built in then?
No, it's used for like drag races.
Okay.
That's really the only place you'll really see nitrous oxide being used. It's also called NOS, N-O-S. It's mostly for drag racing because your engine has to have the super high output, but you're not running it for very long, so you don't have to worry about it actually getting hot.
To quote the late Paul Walker from the first Fast and the Furious movie, I need NOS.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, because I've always thought that NOS is just a myth, that they invented this silly chemical. That
it's drag racers use it, That's about it.
The only time you can really find it useful, because other times you're going to either overheat your engine or you're going to go too fast and able to turn in competitive racing.
Yeah, your average driver doesn't need your average driver doesn't need this. You have to buy tanks of nitrous oxide in order to go anywhere. So,
all right,
it's used in drag racing, which is how we see it in movies. They activate it when they need to go as fast as a drag racer would. So neat. That's all I have.
Okay.
So, another Batman vehicle-related question: how is that different from an afterburner? Because I'm real dumb with car stuff.
Afterburners are mostly used in airplanes, and it's a way for them... Hold on, I'm going to look this up. You're going to hear me typing a bit. I'm at the Wikipedia now.
Okay, reason I ask is just because when you play Batman Arkham Knight, it feels like every other mission, it's like, use the afterburner! Afterburner! Afterburner!
Yeah, basically they just pump extra fuel after the turbine. So basically they like pump fuel in, and then that burns and just gives it a huge boost of thrust. The problem is that it uses all your fuel real quickly.
I was gonna say it's just like shoving a ton of fuel onto an open flame and just letting that explosion give you one last burst of energy.
Yeah, so it's extremely inefficient. Yeah, that's all that. So it's how nitrous is used in movies is more like how an afterburner is used in real life.
Okay, so I want to talk quickly about the sound editing that Batman did in the film, and and a little bit of the science behind that. And while I'm not like an official sound engineer, I do the editing for this podcast, and I have had to deal with sound isolation before. Especially, we had a chirping incident, I think, in even our last episode that was a pain in the butt for me to deal with. Because there's that moment where Batman's trying to get rid of the train sound so that he can hear what the Red Hood said to him in the very last word before the subway comes around. And the way Batman does it's not really shown correctly because you have to drag... you have to select the very specific type of sound so that the computer can recognize that that's what, like if it's a chirp, you hear chirp, 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 all it needs is like 3 of those chirps, and it goes, okay, I know that pattern, I'm going to eliminate that from all the other sound. With a train, it sort of builds up, but you can isolate that very loudest moment and get rid of it. Because once a computer, but it also destroys audio quality because you're taking a section of the vibrations being recorded and you're throwing them away to try and reach this other sound, and it's not going to come across as pure. So the way Batman did it, he just dragged and then just like deleted the subway sound automatically. And I was like, come on, Bat Computer, give me a little effort.
It's the Bat Computer, though. Like, it can do that.
All right.
Batman's a genius. He wrote better audio editing software than will exist because he's a genius.
Okay.
And knows.
All right. I'll concede to that. I was just going... I had to slog over that for a good 30 minutes, and you just did it in 10 seconds, you jerk.
It's like most things in comic books, science-related, it's not as simple as it looks in the movie.
Also, I would hope, he spends 30 minutes of the movie just trying to isolate this one sound clip. Because that's narratively interesting.
That's how long it would take, though, you son of a bitch. Okay. Ben, do you have some fun facts you want to talk about? Because your science topics were pretty truncated.
Yeah, I can talk about some fun facts, and then I'll open it up to others. I had two. We talked about earlier how this is like pretty hardcore, and I think it's rated PG-13.
Yep.
Yeah. So this was, I read that this was supposed to be rated R, but WB was like, yeah, no, you have to tone it down.
We have to try and appeal this to kids.
Yeah, like, it's really hard to release an R-rated animated film and have it make any goddamn money at all.
About Batman. Kids love Batman.
Yeah.
In fact, only now has WB allowed an R-rated cut, and that's with the upcoming animated adaptation of The Killing Joke.
That thing's brutal, though. Like to censor that in a way that would become PG-13 would kind of ruin the essence of the story. I could see it being done with a lot of respect and justification, but it would definitely be a different emotional tale.
Yeah, and all of it is due more towards, like, psychological stuff, not really gore. I mean, some nudity, yeah.
There's nudity, yeah.
There's quite a bit of nudity.
To prove a point, though, there's nudity to, like,
to
create
psychological
damage. It's torment.
It's not gratuitous.
Yeah. Well, I'd say it's gratuitous because it's used in a tormenting way. But it's nudity with a purpose. You know, it's not nudity for the source of just like, oh look, objectified bodies.
I guess we have different definitions of gratuitous, so we mean the same thing.
Probably, I think purposeful is more the key word I'm thinking here.
Yeah.
It is definitely like the nudity is a big plot point in The Killing Joke.
Yes. So,
but none of that can be found in Under the Red Hood.
No, you definitely see moments where it's toned down.
Yeah. So I had another fun fact, and if you're a child of the '90s like I am, you will remember the 2000 U.S. presidential election, Bush v. Gore. And if you do the calculations like I did, the margin by which Jason Todd was killed off is almost exactly the same as the margin of the popular vote in Bush versus Gore.
But didn't Bush crush Gore in the popular vote?
No.
Oh, I thought he won.
Gore actually beat Bush in the popular vote.
He did?
Yeah.
Must have been the 2004 where Bush got more than any other president.
I remember the 2004.
Okay.
2000 it was very close, and it was...
Well, the electorals were, it was down to Florida.
Yeah, and the popular was. That's what made it so controversial.
Okay.
Meanwhile, in 1984, the story, the year where that story took place, popular vote for the presidential election, not even that close.
Reagan destroy!
Yeah, so, like, if real-life elections were as close as the Jason Todd death election, it would trigger an automatic recount.
But comic books aren't that intense. They don't rely on world politics.
Although, if it had triggered an automatic recount, I bet that they'd find a lot of people who are calling in a dozen times because they really want to see Jason Todd to die.
Dude, I think someone just, got really hurt in my neighborhood. I just saw a cop car and a fire truck fly by, sirens blaring, and then not 8 minutes later, I don't know how long we've been talking, but an ambulance is going the other direction as fast as possible.
We had a woman who had a seizure in the store today.
Oh, did you put a tongue depressor in their mouth?
No,
Make sure they
I'm not supposed to do that.
Oh, wait. What are you supposed to do, just lean them back?
You just cradle their head between your thighs and make sure they don't get a concussion.
Well, they can't. You got to make sure they don't bite their tongue, right?
It wasn't a violent one. She just collapsed, and then she got back up, and her blood pressure was all low, and we had to call the ambulance. And
Of course.
And she swore at him because she didn't want to pay for it.
You absolutely do not try to prevent them from biting their tongue, because you'll probably do more harm than good if you try.
Really? Oh, okay.
You gotta take a first aid class, dude.
I suppose I do. Movie
Fun
myths.
fact, I would not trust Michael to save my life.
You shouldn't. You definitely shouldn't, unless you're about to die. Unless you need and the only way you can survive is with superhero facts. That's the only situation I think I would be useful.
Oh, hey, so there's another fun fact.
Thank you for saving me from that awkward pause. Go ahead.
That's fine. It's just come out recently that reports are saying that the next/first in the next line of standalone Batman movies with Ben Affleck is supposed to involve this storyline with both Ben Affleck as Batman and Jared Leto as the Joker.
Oh, well, I think it's just going to be flashback moments to how Jason Todd dies, because it's a really emotional story, and it gives Batman a lot of purpose because Dick Grayson was such a success as a ward. He's grown into his own, so Batman felt he could do no wrong, and then Jason Todd was a giant failure. This boy gets murdered by his greatest enemy, and that's a great emotional story. I think they're just going to draw on that. I don't know if they'll talk about the Red Hood at all, because I think there's more Batman stories that should be done live action before Red Hood needs to be adapted from, because we've got this animated one, and I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the footage from Batman vs. Superman, you can already see they're kind of hinting at this tragedy that's happened. So if they keep going down that road, I think it's going to make for a rich live-action Batman universe.
Okay. Anybody got any more fun facts?
I got drinking game rules.
Oh, all right. Let's go to the new SHMC section, drinking game rules, that has replaced because of this movie. So this is where we're just going to list off. You can create your own rules, of course, on your own, but we're going to give you some standards if you want to watch Batman the Red Hood either again or for the first time. Here's a chance to do it with alcohol, with some rules, with your buddies, or by yourself, if whatever floats your boat. So, Ben, why don't you start us off with the first drinking game rule that should be applied to this film?
All right. First off, you take a drink every time the Joker delivers a line that would have been more convincing if he didn't sound exactly like Jake the dog.
From Adventure Time, for people who aren't familiar.
Yes.
Yeah. Or any other John DiMaggio character. Like
yeah, Bender, or I can't think of any others.
There's a lot out there.
Mostly Jake the dog, because he's like the opposite of the Joker here.
100%. Take a shot out of respect every time Batman does the Vanishing Act. Just because you kind of have to. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Drink at every moment a parent has a horrific realization of just what they've let their kid watch.
Oh, and I'm going to counter that, actually, with the last person to shout out PG-13 whenever an explicit violence or gore moment happens has to keep drinking until the next person gets punched on screen. And you'll know.
Oh, you'll know. Also, take a shot every time a twist is ruined because you've read one of the books this movie's based on. So that's the Red Hood, Killing Joke, the other one, Killing Joke.
Death in the Family.
Death in the Family, Killing Joke, Hush.
To counter that one, drink every time there's a comic book reference you don't understand. Just as a catch-22.
take a shot every time a supernatural fanboy or girl works themselves into a coma from excitement at hearing Jensen Ackles.
Which he only talks like 4 times in the movie. When you really listen to it, he does not have that many lines.
Who is his character?
The Red Hood.
Oh yeah, okay.
Like he probably talks more as young Jason Todd than he does as the Red Hood.
Speaking of people having like 4 lines in the whole thing, Waterfall just straight up during any and all monologue exposition dumps.
So that includes, for example, Batman describing what a mazo is to the 2 crooks he just tied up. The 2 crooks, or the 2 to 3 crooks, talking amongst themselves about who Nightwing is for a good 30 seconds.
Everything Ra's al Ghul does.
Everything Ra's al Ghul says. Oh man, there were a fair amount of exposition dumps in this movie. When Batman sees a flashback of the Red Hood falling in a vat of chemicals, gotta keep drinking through that whole scene, dude.
Yep.
Oh, every time the Joker says something about how he used to wear that costume.
That's a good 4 drinks, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I just, when you rewatch it, you realize, wow, he likes to talk about that.
Every time he uses the phrase motorcycle fetish.
Just once, but you should take a shot at that moment.
2 or 3 times.
Are you certain?
I'm pretty sure he says it at least twice.
I'll put money down on that one, and I will take drinks if I lose. What?
Oh, I was going to do one. Do a Jaeger bomb out of respect at that scene at the end where Batman just punches Jason through the wall.
Because that's how strong everyone is. And finally, finish the bottle. When you settle uncomfortably in your chair after watching the flashback of Jason Todd in a green thong fight crime.
Oh, Lordy.
I could not have been the only one who was like, probably should have given him green pants. I mean, come on. That seems a little small for a 9-year-old boy.
He shows a lot of leg.
And it isn't necessary. Batman's wearing a full battle suit. I mean, come on.
Gotham City is a coastal city. That has to be cold.
It's pretty warm.
It's on the East Coast. I mean, so yeah, it's got to get cold in the winter. But I mean, in the summer, that's probably appropriate. It's never appropriate. What am I saying? It's like a freaking 10-year-old kid in a Speedo fighting crime. When has that ever been a fashion style? Finish your damn bottle, guys. You know when that scene hits.
There's a great webcomic of it's either Robin's birthday or his inauguration, and it's a gift, and it's the Robin suit, and Bruce Wayne's just sitting there all intently watching it. It's like, you gonna put it on?
Entertain me, boy. Okay.
Whoa, don't be gross.
We're gonna cut that off now. So it looks like that's gonna wrap it up for today, Superfans. Superhero Movie Club is recorded and produced by Tri-Up Cop Productions. I still have not made a website. If you like what you hear, please show us your support by going to our iTunes page where you probably subscribe to us, or if you haven't, subscribe to us. But also leave a rating and make it 5 stars. Only 5 stars. Write a review, too. Have some fun with it. Call us piles of crap, but leave it at 5 stars just to confuse us.
Yeah, and also what you should write about is at our subreddit, r/Superhero Movie Club, we have a mailbag thread stickied there, so you can come ask us questions. We also want you to keep talking about these movies with us. That's reddit.com/r/Superhero Movie Club.
Yeah, because we're going to post the show notes to this episode, and if you've got any more drinking game rules you want to add, or any corrections of anything stupid we said, there's the definite place to do it, and we will respond and respect you for doing it there so kindly.
Yeah, and our Twitter feed is also a really great place to leave your drinking game rules. That's at SuperheroMC. Leave us your questions, comments, concerns. Twitter is also a really good place to proclaim that John DiMaggio is the next Joker, whatever, but maybe don't do that.
It depends on if you're a fan. All right, so that'll do today. I'm your host, Michael Maurer.
James Schuyler Houtsman.
And Ben Anderson.
And I hope you all have a super week. See you later, everybody!